and welcome back to the podcast of Wednesday's Child. Delighted to be back for another episode and delighted to once again be joined by the fabulous therapist Sarah Parker. Hi Sarah.
Hi Debbie, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much, very good. So we're going to get straight into it, and the reason that we are doing this is in part because you kind of inspired the conversation, because what was it you were doing last week, Sarah?
So last week I ran the Great North Run, probably I think for the 9th or 10th time, Debbie. Yeah.
Wow, what amazing. I have done it only once, so it's very impressive that you've done it for the ninth or 10th time. But the kind of conversation that this sparks is about eating disorder recovery and movement, isn't it? It's that kind of, when is the right time? Is there a right time? How do you nudge yourself back into exercise after a prolonged period of battling something as horrendous as an eating disorder? And I know not all people that have an eating disorder do have any kind of exercise addiction, but it does form part of the symptomatic behaviour for many. So I suppose I really wanted to start with sort of a bit personal perspective, really, Sarah. The fact that you ran the Great North Run, and it's something that you do very regularly, and why wouldn't you? It's an awesome kind of location and wonderful setting to do it in. But do you remember the point at which you felt it was appropriate for you to step back into exercise or any degree of movement once you'd recovered?
Yeah, and I think I actually had a few non-starters, Debbie. I came out of hospital for the final time, and there were a few times where I decided, okay, I'm going to try this. I went to the gym, and I could tell within a couple of visits to the gym that mindset of, oh, I did that last time, I've got to do more this time, I've got to do more. And I had to be really, really honest with myself and say, no, this is going to stop again, because this is not the time. I don't want this. And if this is where my mind goes right now, then I'm not going to go back to the gym. So I kind of pulled it right back, and I was just walking around, just going for a gentle walk or walking the dog, or, doing everyday things rather than formal exercise. And I started again, and the same. And I guess everybody's different when it comes to how soon after recovery or into recovery they start. But I think being honest with ourselves and thinking, okay, why am I continuing with this? What is driving this? And what will happen if I carry on with this mindset was so important to me, because I think I knew that at that stage, I was still fairly early stages of being beyond the eating disorder, and I was still quite vulnerable, I think. So yeah, I had a few
When you
false
say vulnerable,
starts.
do you mean cognitively as well as physically, or?
Not physically vulnerable, cognitively vulnerable, to that pull of never quite enough. Whatever you do, it's never enough. It's got to be a bit more next time. That was the thing for me, that thing of just do a bit more, just do a bit more. And I think
Compulsion
once
was still there rather
yeah,
than it being, I'm making a choice about this because the endorphins will make me feel good, but I'll stop if I don't feel like it after 15 minutes.
absolutely. And I think I made a choice to go back to the gym, which was a healthy choice. But what I very quickly learned was some of that old thinking pattern was very much there and could feel quite strong. And I just didn't think it was worth the risk for me to carry on at that time. And I think a little bit later than that, I remember starting, and you don't get them very often now, but an aerobics class. And it was a class that was an hour long. I couldn't do more. Nothing was measured. There were no calorie measures. There was no energy measures. There was no heartbeat measures. It was just a fun class. And actually, that was my next step in, which was really helpful, because it was a lot of different people having fun, just moving about and moving to some music. And it was a start, a middle, and a finish. And that was it. And that for me was a really helpful way to get back in, because it was fun, and it was only one night a week. That was it.
Also, I think the thing that you've said there is about it was a group thing and there were lots of different kinds of people. And I think if you can ensure that you're doing something in part for the sociability as well, rather
Yes.
than exercising in isolation and potentially forcing yourself to do more,
Yeah.
you know, what you were gaining from that, yes, all right, you were moving, but you were doing it with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about making that fit into your life rather than making your life fit around that.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing things on your own, it's very easy to say, well, I can do it now because it doesn't affect anybody else and I can do it and I'll pause that, but I can do this. Whereas when it's something that other people are coming to, it's controlled and managed almost.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I still don't go to the gym, not because I can't or because it's unhelpful for me, because I just don't enjoy it. And I think that's also really important. If you're going to step back into doing some movement, ask yourself, am I enjoying this? Because if you're not, then why are you doing it? I bizarrely love running. I'm not a good runner, I'm not a fast runner, but I love it. And I love it because I can step out the front door and I can be off. And it takes a pair of shoes and some leggings, and pretty much that's it. And I think that enjoying what you do is really important, particularly in the early stages. And, I don't force myself to try and get faster because that would take the enjoyment away for me. I just enjoy a plod and it's wonderful and I love it. Enjoyment's got to be part of it.
So, with your therapist hat on, rather than Sarah who recovered herself,
Mm.
how do you advise someone that is, you know, in recovery or feels they are recovered, quite significantly? What kind of conversations are you having with them about making that decision for themselves?
I think right at the beginning, we talk much more about movement rather than exercise. And movement is just about what our bodies want to do, what they naturally want to do. So it might be that you just have a walk with a friend. It might be that you take the stairs now and again instead of an escalator, if that's But I think it isn't about, right, I'm going to do formal exercise. I think it's about gently starting with just allowing your body the freedom to move again, allowing your arms to move. And that might just be doing a bit of a dance in the bedroom at home. I think it's really coming in gradually and noticing as you doing that, notice the feelings that come up, notice the thoughts that come up, and really kind of check out, are these old things that are driving me in a direction that won't serve me? Or is this a joyful thing that I feel like I'm enjoying and I feel like I can make choices that are coming from my values rather than my eating disorder thinking. So that's where we start. But I think it's always coming to that. Is this about values? Is this about looking after my body? Or is this something else?
It's a bit of an internal dialogue, isn't it? It's a kind of, what is my motivation for doing this? Is it because it will flood me with happy hormones and I'm going to be around 40 other people in that class, that's a big class, Debbie. You're going to have lots of other people around you, or I'm joining my friend to go on a short jog but on the river wall in the countryside, and that's going to feel fun because it's, outdoors and it gives us a chance to gossip. It's checking in and saying what's really motivating me to do this.
It really is. I think as well as a therapist, I'm looking out and listening for little clues like, oh, and then I could have some chocolate, or I could allow myself to have this because, there are those sneaky little ways that our minds do of compensating. And I
Yeah.
think that ability to say, I carry on eating as normal, whether I exercise and move around or not, is really important. It's about saying, on the days that I don't move much because I'm working or I'm really tired, can I still carry on doing what I'm doing with my food? And if the answer's no, then we've got a question. What's going on here? What is the purpose of this exercise and movement?
So wherever it's becoming compensatory behaviour, then that's a red flag.
It really is, because I think that we so often, and actually society associates food. You hear it all the time, and it angers and frustrates me. I hear it on the radio, and I'm listening to the radio, people just throwing away comments of, oh, I've been to the gym so I can have X, Y, and Z. And it's part of normal conversation, but it isn't part of a normal way of treating our bodies. Exercise and nutrition are about looking after our body. They're not about balancing out, numbers or weights or calories, or they're about taking care of ourselves. And if it isn't about taking care of ourselves, then why are we doing it? What's the driver?
So it's about checking in and saying, I'm not having that equation of, I did this so I can do that, or because I did this, I must do that.
Yes,
It's take the equation out of it and just that
absolutely.
single question of,
Yeah.
will I enjoy going to do this? Does my body feel that it would like to do this for the next half an hour?
Yeah. Will this benefit my mind and my body? And
Mm.
by benefiting my mind, I don't mean those thoughts that come with an eating disorder. I mean the thoughts of, will it give me some feel good hormones? Will it give me some fresh air? Will it give me a different view so that I can be
Vitamin C,
mindful in
chance
that
to kind of
moment?
have some creative thinking, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Will it give me some headspace? Is this me looking after me and doing what's best for me?
Yeah, really interesting. The fact that, so depending what kind of exercise you do, it can make someone feel more aware of their restored body. I'm very conscious. You and I talked before we started recording there.
Mm.
I'm experimenting with Pilates for the first time. It's a much
Same.
slower form of exercise. But I do find I'm much more in tune with my body as I'm doing things and what my
Mm.
limbs are doing.
Good.
And I suppose if somebody is still in recovery or in that restoration period,
Mm.
it is going to make them more alert to their changed, fluffier, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
changed body. How does one handle that?
Mm. And I think everybody will be different, but for me, I think that's where the idea of mindfulness comes in. It's about noticing the feelings without the judgments. It's about noticing what we feel, what feels different, but being curious about it rather than, oh, this is different, this is bad. This is different. What's that about? What's being curious about the responses, but without judgment. Because I think that one of the things that we do have to find a way through is a changing feel to our bodies. There's no getting away from the idea that recovery means that our bodies are going to look and feel different if we're recovering, if particularly if we're recovering from anorexia nervosa, but also, other eating disorders. Even if it's not a visible change, it may well be a kind of sensation change. And particularly so with people who are neurodivergent, that sensation may well be much more enhanced. And so it's finding ways of noticing the feelings. And sometimes I play about with it, not with a change of my body, but on a run, I can have painful feet because I've had surgery on my feet. And the difference it can make is if I'm running and think, oh, my feet hurt, that can stop me. If I run and I think, oh, there's a sensation in my feet, what's going on? That's curious. It does slightly change the feel of it, and it's practicing that curiosity rather than the judgment of what it is. Always taking care that we don't push our bodies to do things that, I'm not going to run on feet that are agonizing and I'm going to cause them more harm. But it's about being curious about what's coming up without the judgment of it having to be good or bad necessarily, because we will all experience changes. That might be changes from an eating disorder, it's changes as we get older. Things will feel different, and how we kind of adapt to that is much better with curiosity rather than judgment.
It's really interesting. And I think even when you return to exercise, I think, I mean, you can, for example, you can have a particular running gait while you were particularly underweight to what you will be like in a restored body. That just naturally feels different. You have to get used to the rhythm of your body and just accept it. But it's a reminder that you have restored yourself and got yourself into a healthier place to be able to take part in these activities.
Yeah, but I think it's also being kind to ourselves, because those early days of recovery, particularly where our mind has leapt, our body has leapt to a place where it needs to be, but our mind's playing catch up, that's the risk time. And that's the time when our mind's much more likely to make judgments of our body because it's just not adapted to it yet. So it's allowing your mind the time to catch up to the changes, but also throughout that time where it can feel difficult, bringing in that compassion. Okay, this is hard. I'm going to be really kind to myself whilst I stay through this process to get to where I need to be. So compassion is always important, as well as not bringing in those judgments. This is where I'm at. It's hard. And what do I do to carry myself through with kindness?
Yeah. I'll turn the attention to how does a parent, partner, someone that is caring for someone or has been through that person's journey with them. I can imagine the minute that person says, actually, do you know what? I've decided I'm well enough. I'm going to return to exercise. If you're in a family where that person has been, pounding the streets in their sort of sickest state, that parent or that partner is going to be really frightened, aren't they? Now, it's not going to help to start complete conflict and say, I absolutely refuse to allow you to do that. What are some of the steps that you could say to have in place if you're in that circumstance? Because in a way, you want that person to have some autonomy over their kind of recovery going forward. And also, we all know that the more you try to resist something, the more likely someone will do it kind of in secret, so to speak. And the last thing we want is more secrets in eating disorder recovery. So how does the parent handle that?
Well, I think perhaps the first thing is the conversation around being honest. This worries me. This really worries me. It's not that I don't trust your, ability to recover and do well, but I'm worried because I'm scared of what happened before. It's about being really honest. I think it's also about agreeing together what are some of the signs that we might both notice if things are not as great as we wanted them to be, and how can we have those conversations in a safe space without it becoming attacking or defensive. So have the conversations before, if you can, about what do we need to look out for, what does the person that's experiencing eating disorder need to look out for, what do the parents, loved ones, friends look out for, and how might be the best way to approach a conversation if things look worrying again. I think that we've got to experiment. We've got to experiment. It might be that you give, you say, right, let's give it 2 weeks and let's come back together and talk about honestly how it's going, how it feels for you, how it looks for me. Let's give ourselves 2 weeks for this experiment and then we'll come back together. So it's putting in things like that. It's being prepared for the new thing that's coming and being open about the conversations that you might want to have, being open about what might be the challenges and what might be the things to look out for.
And is it worth that parent also saying to that person, well, you say you want to do movement again, you say you want to do exercise, perhaps we could explore together what form of exercise you might do initially. And rather than, I can imagine if someone has been used to seeing that loved one always go off for really torturous runs or whatever, perhaps exploring with them a different kind of, let's go to this, I understand that you want to get back to movement. Shall we perhaps go for a swim together once a week and we could go for a coffee afterwards? Or kind of almost like you're slightly acquiescing, but saying, I don't want you just to return to what had become a regime.
Yeah. And I think it is making it something social if possible. So like you say, go for a coffee afterwards. Here's something that we do together. But it might also be that that person really doesn't want to do a different activity. And then it is about watching and waiting and seeing. And knowing that actually honesty is always going to be the most helpful, because I think loved ones don't want to see us fail, they want to see us succeed. But sometimes the sufferer can feel like, oh, they just don't want me to do what I love doing. And that's the difficulty, isn't it? So I think it's about knowing that each person has their best interests at heart. It's just that it might look slightly different. But actually, when you get in touch with the person that experienced the eating disorder beyond the eating disorder, they want the best for them too. So that's
Yeah.
where we can agree, what's going to be best for me as a human, what's going to be best for my daughter or son or my sister as a human being, and have that conversation. Because I think that it may be that swimming would look lovely to a parent, but the child might not want to go swimming.
Yeah.
I think it is about enjoyment of whatever we choose to do. And we might experiment with something new, but if we're not enjoying it, what I would say though is, in the beginning, if you can, stay away from measurements, stay away from numbers within the exercise, because it's always a trigger point, it's always a possible problem. And just have some freedom to move in any which way without any numbers, any counting, any kind of facts and figures. Just allow your body to be a bit freer.
Yeah, I think something you said earlier about just doing something to music and things, we all know we're stimulated by that. It can give us the happy hormones, even if it's for a short period of time.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it releases something within us, doesn't it?
It does, and I think the movement to music feels different because we don't focus so much on our body. We're focusing as well on the music. So it's having an extra focus so that if it does feel particularly difficult within our bodies, then we've got an external focus that we can keep our mind on and still allow ourselves to move.
Yeah. So the only other thing I wanted to kind of raise in this is, if you are navigating your own recovery and you are someone that knows through the process of having had an eating disorder, you now have the very lucky diagnosis of having something like osteoporosis or osteopenia, you
Yeah,
really are going to have to give a great deal of consideration about, what is my body capable of that
yeah,
perhaps it was before and maybe less so now? Am I at risk of more injuries? How do I keep myself safe? And you talk about that all the time, don't you, Sarah, with recovery? How do
yeah,
I keep myself well,
yeah,
safe, and
yeah,
accountable? And I think where
absolutely.
you've got an early diagnosis of something like
Yeah.
that, or it might be someone that's had bradycardia for a long
Mhm.
time, all those kind of things, they matter when you're now thinking about bringing exercise back.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point, Debbie. I think that it is about working with your body, not against it. So if there have been some changes within your body, always seek, your GP support to start exercise again. If you're within treatment, whoever's supporting you, but really think about what's safe. Um, what's safe in terms of physical aspects of your body, what's safe in terms of your cognitions and your mind. I think it's a really good point that you bring up.
And I think that's about being fair to yourself as the person that's recovering, but also fair to the person that perhaps putting that class on or whatever. I'm just mentioning about the Pilates thing, and I found myself sort of filling in a form, and it was sort of talking about, disclosing conditions and anything that they need to be aware of. And you're doing that for the benefit of you both, so that the
Yes.
instructor and yourself are safe. And
Yeah.
in my case, it meant that the instructor was able to say, right, well, when you do this move, I wouldn't overextend this.
Yeah.
And everybody wants you to be able to be well, happy, and enjoying movement, but
Yeah.
we need you to do that safely.
Safely and as part of a lifestyle that's focused around well-being. Because doing something that's against your body isn't about well-being anymore. So it's doing working within the remit of well-being always.
Yeah. As you've said so many times, we do need to focus on our unique recovery. And equally, it's not just about someone else that's been recovered or is in recovery, someone that you look at online or whatever, and they chart their recovery journey. I would also just say be a little bit aware of other friends, even if their exercise pattern is something that is just too much for you. Just be sensible, check in with yourself, and just remind yourself why you're doing it.
Yeah. And I think those comparisons, Debbie, comparisons are never helpful for us. Do what's right for you. But also, I think it's really important in this conversation to say if you are somebody that's working on recovery or recovering from an eating disorder and exercise isn't your thing, that's all right. We're not saying here that, everybody needs to start exercising after an eating disorder. That's not the case at all. Do what's right for you. And actually, if walking around the shops with friends or, just gently moving around the house is what you do, that's all right too. We're not by any means saying if you've recovered, you have to do some exercise. Not at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. I mean, you talk about the need to find the joy, and as you say, the comparison being the thief of all joy. So just find what works for you. And if it's pursuing a hobby that's absolutely unrelated to exercise, but it means that you're living a happier, more fulfilling life, then that's the way to spend that time, not to just do something just because you think other people are. So, well, thank you for sparing the time to talk to us all about that, Sarah. It's just really useful insight and great to be able to bring your personal perspective in. And well done. I should have asked you to have your Great North Run medal for the camera because I do know it got into a bit of controversy, didn't it? Didn't even feature
No
feature the
Newcastle
right
and
city.
no Tyne.
Oh dear. Well, as
But,
someone that also works in PR and comms, I did see that and think, who the heck signed that off? What a disaster.
but you
Oh,
know what, Debbie? We're all human, aren't we?
we are so few. And on that note, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of the Wednesday's Child podcast. We'll see you very, very soon for another discussion about eating disorders and recovery. Take care for now.